So I was thinking the other day and came across this thought that our notebooks and our journals are historical texts, and like we're literally making history. And that's a really interesting concept when you think about it. And so, speaking of notebooks, I have one right here with a nice mustache on the front. What we write about and record could be handed down through generations, through notebooks and journals. But phones and notes in the cloud, I doubt that they're going to be handed down through generations. I understand that notes and paper also will deteriorate over time, but things I've typed on this phone most likely will not make it off this phone. Or, if I get another iPhone, they might transfer. But eventually, my notes and stuff, if I have any stored on here, they're going to be gone. They're going to be lost to the internet, locked in an iCloud somewhere, deleted, corrupted, who knows? But they're not going to be handed down. I know a lot of people that type and they journal on their phone important things. I really don't know what the legitimacy is of that process. Like, how realistic is it that our phones and online documents will be passed down that have this important information? And maybe some people don't. Like, they do not want anybody ever to read what they've written, and that's understandable. And if they don't, then that's maybe a fine option for them. Just think about all of the diaries or handwritten notes and perspectives that have been used throughout history. The Anne Frank diary, for example, is a notable piece of history. We visited Gettysburg a few years ago, and through one of the buildings, a lot of the accounts were based off of the diary and writings of somebody who lived in Gettysburg at the time. And her writings are now history. Anne Frank's writings are now part of history. So when we journal, we're capturing things like events, emotions, cultures, perspectives, really anything, weather patterns, what people were going through at that time period. My notes are full of all kinds of just random thoughts and reflections, and my journal, it's a mix between what I'm dealing with that day, what happened that day. Every now and then I talk about the weather, if it's an extreme situation or something out of the ordinary. I really cover a lot of different things. And so those things could be used in the future by our families, or if something crazy happens. I don't know what. I don't want to think about anything too much, but if, say something catastrophic happens, or just a life-altering event happens for a large amount of people, where, I don't know, the internet gets erased, or, the grid shuts down or something, and people are looking for information about that time period, they're not going to be able to go on the internet and find things, if the internet doesn't exist. And I know a lot of people probably rolling their eyes and say, man, what are you talking about? The internet doesn't exist. Like, just theorize with me for a moment. Paper and pen and pencil, like, somebody cannot remotely delete this or take this from us. Yes, it is not infinite, that it will eventually deteriorate, or it could get burned up in a fire, or it could get wet and get ruined, or your kid could rip a page out and rip it to shreds or eat it or something. So it's not that this is, invincible and that nothing can happen to it. It's just, if you look and think back through history, like, writings and physical hard copy writings are what a lot of history is based off of. And every now and then I look back and reflect on this. Sometimes I say, okay, what was I doing a year ago? And I'm like, wow, either I've made it a lot of progress since then, or like, hey, I'm still working on this thing that I wrote about in my notebook or my journal. And so I just wanted to share this idea that our notebooks are history, that our journals are history, and whether or not it makes it to national or global history, it is our personal history, and it's our family's history. And it's something that eventually I'll hand down to my kids and say, hey, whatever you want to do with these, do with them. I don't recommend you just throw them away, but you just look through them every now and then. See what wisdom you can glean from them, or see what you can, learn about the history, things that we went through as a family. There's things that we're going through right now that we do not tell our children because they don't need to know. But eventually they'll be adults, and we might not think about bringing it up, but they could read through a journal or notebook and say, oh my gosh, like, this is what our family was going through at this time. Thank the Lord that we made it through. I don't know. It's just an example. And so I encourage you to write document things, whether you just write a recap of your day or, hey, today's weather, this is how I was feeling today, this is what happened, and just do that. Not necessarily every day. I don't write every day. I try to, but, every other day, every few days, just make a plan to write something down and keep it. And you never know, down the line, you might look back at something and say, you know what, I'm really glad I wrote this down. That's this video. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Let me know if you journal, use notebooks, how you use them down in the comments section below. Thank you all so much for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.